Okay, so for today's quick take, I'm going to be discussing something that's mostly for American audiences, and it's in regard to the public school and school boards. So you'll see a lot of conservatives, even the hard right ones, saying, we have to get ourselves elected to school boards. We have to make changes in the school boards, and that's where because that's where one of the problems is. Our public schools are indoctrinating our children. Now, what I have to say about that is, first off, a little background. I've been fighting against public schools since I was in one in the 70s and 80s by not going. But besides that, as an impetuous young man, when I had my own children, we did not put our children, we opted out of putting our children into the public system. Basically, because I remember my own personal experience, and also that at the time we had become very red pill to our Christian faith, and we were beginning to see clearly, thanks to the Lord's inspiration, where that placing our innocent little babies into the hands of these miscreants is a very bad idea. Now, I bring this up because I don't think it's a strategy at all. And in fact, back then, back in the 90s, my wife and I, my adorable wife and I, were uh, trying to tell the conservatives who were putting their kids in public school, and a lot of them were evangelical Christians giving this spiel about, being salt and light in the system. That no, the idea is you should really not have your children in these systems whatsoever, in any way, shape, or form. Now, that was back in 92, or 93, 94, etc., mid 90s. And we were early adopters of homeschooling in our state. At the time, it was highly regulated, highly onerous, annoyingly paperwork filled. And thanks to, yes, even certain evangelical groups and many local homeschool groups, I cannot praise something called the HSLDA enough. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Look it up, Google it. They're still around and worth every penny. They were an activist group, and we were activists in our state, and we were like in the vanguard of making homeschooling accessible to everybody and educating people about how, folks, education for children is not as hard as you think. It requires a sacrifice, but if you really loved your kids, etc. So let me read something that now, as of 2022, here where we sit now. Okay, we're going to read this. This is a letter, and maybe you've probably seen this yourself on your various social media platforms. I found this on Telegram. And it goes, a teacher in Palm Beach County, Florida, shared this template with us. It is being shared among the teachers to use for grades K through 3. That's kindergarten through 3rd grade, people. How do you feel about this? Question mark in the what they're saying. This is the teacher now. Time to take a stand. I should put it in a really queer voice. Time to take a stand. No, see, I can't even do it. Anyway. Dear Florida parent caretaker, the Florida House of Representatives has recently ruled that classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. Close quote. To be in accordance with this policy, I will no longer be referring to your student with gendered pronouns. All students will be referred to as they or them. I will no longer use a gendered title such as Mr. or Mrs. or make any references to my husband, wife in the classroom. From now on, I will be using non-gendered titled mix, MX. Furthermore, I will be removing all books or instruction will refer to a person being a mother, father, husband, wife, as these are gender identities that also may allude to sexual orientation. Needless to say, all. Now, this is the state of teaching in the year 2022, people. Now, who's to blame for this? This is where I'm going to get flack. In my estimation, putting your child in the American public school system at any level, all the way through high school, at any level, but especially from when they're little, little sponges. They're little cute little sponges. They'll take everything in that you give them, especially when they're the youngest. Putting any child in this system is tantamount to child abuse or child neglect at the very least, if it's not outright abuse. So it's child neglect, maybe. That would probably be a softer version of what I'm trying to say. I would make it akin to you have a lake. You're on vacation and there's a lake. You're in South America. You're really rich, so you get to have a South American vacation. And you have little kids who are just learning to swim. Okay? And you go to this really beautiful, it's a beautiful lake. It's well structured, there's beautiful trees around, easy access, The weather's beautiful, it's recommended by the local authorities. And so you go to this lake and you see big signs all around the lake. And you look into the lake. And what you see are piranha. You see piranha fish. You see a duck go in and goes down and is eaten up and spit out bones. Well, I don't even think they spit out the bones, the piranha. So then you say, yeah, kids, go ahead, go swimming. Go ahead. And then the piranha eat it. And you're like, oh, the horror. Why doesn't somebody do something? Why was this allowed to happen? My children got destroyed by these piranha and swimming in this beautiful lake. Yeah, you have no one else to blame but yourself, parents. You have no one else to blame for yourself. There is so much evidence out there that the public school system in America is one of the most destructive, child-destroying entities on the earth. And it rubs me wrong as a Catholic where I constantly have to get the bullshit bigotry about pedophile priests and blah, blah, blah about the Catholic Church. Meanwhile, the public school system in the United States of America is the most sexually depraved, proven statistically to do more sexual assaults on children than anything the Catholic Church has ever had done within its confines over its entire existence of 2,000 years. Within the, 150 years of public education in the United States, if that, maybe that's stretching it. But the point being that this system is abusive. This system is proudly abusive. It has no problem like that teacher sending out a letter like that. And the greatest thing is that as a parent, don't you love your children? Okay, so now here it comes. Here it comes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to come at me. But we have to work 2 jobs. What am I supposed to do with my child all day? I cannot. I would love to stay home with them, but that's such a luxury item that I really can't because, we have to pay for our 4 cars and our home. We bought this beautiful McMansion, and we live in a cul-de-sac. We cannot possibly afford this mortgage if I stay home and I don't go to work. One of the parents, but obviously it should be the mother. Anyway, you see my point, I think. Obviously, the public system is unsavable, unfixable, unusable, and completely evil from its top to its bottom. Are there good teachers in the system? Yeah, probably, but I don't see how they survive. If you have any kind of moral conscience, I cannot see how you would stay in the public system. I mean, maybe you think you can make a change at your classroom, but good luck with that, right? The minute you pipe up, adios, hasta luego. Don't let the door hit you in the ass, racist. Or homophobe or whatever slur they're going to come at you with as a teacher. Because A true teacher, to me, a true teacher is a calling. It's not a job. The one of the problems with the public system, one of the lesser problems with the public system, is that it's created a job out of teaching. It just made, anybody can get the degree and can pass the minor testing of intellect and ability, can become a teacher and become unionized and have your job protected and everything. But it's not a calling for them. It's just, a paycheck. Now, the teachers with a calling, that would be like, that one teacher you remember who really cared about you and showed if you're in public system, there was always like one or two that you really saw actually cared about you, and they weren't the ones easy on you, that's for sure. But you could tell they actually cared. Well, those teachers now are just being squeezed straight out of the system. They do not survive. Because they're not allowed to establish curriculum, first off. The curriculum, they could do minor tweaks and whistles and maybe edit and maybe deliberately obfuscate and try to make it work against their own consciences. But 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. The teachers are being, forced into this curriculum. And the curriculum is what? The curriculum is to make your child brain dead and subservient to the system. No doubt about it. No doubt about it whatsoever. And now, as they've moved on, the homosexual sodomy movement in America since the 80s has a straight as an arrow trajectory towards legalized pedophilia. If you think Will and Grace was about 2 adults, you missed the point. Will and Grace and all the, was it Three's Company back in my day, all the shows that started putting out the funny fags. The fags were hilarious, and they were cute. And how could you hate? How could you hate on that person? Look how cute and funny they are. They're decent. All this was softening you up for degeneracy. And ultimately, the degeneracy is pedophilia, the legalization of pedophilia. And the number one gateway to that legalization is the American public school system. As I say, speaking for Americans, I can't speak to other school systems. You'll have to pipe in if you know from your system, wherever you are. Anyway, getting back to it. So the point being that there's practically neon lights saying your kid will be destroyed by this system. Do not put them here. It's sort of like the jab. They're saying now, well, we told you something could happen. I mean, you volunteered for the jab. So if your heart is exploding within your chest, sucks being you. Well, basically that's how they feel about your children. Sucks being you. And these absolute demon teachers nowadays, the ones at least that get the hype, that get shown as heroes, it's despicable. It's utterly despicable. If you've ever been to an inner city high school while it's occupied by its students, you'll know that the system is basically a prison-to-prison system. Its whole job is to enslave your child. Now, I also brought up school boards. Now, the idea is that, well, if we would take over the school board, if we get 4 out of 5 conservatives on there, if we get a voting majority on the school board, we get five out of 9, we get that voting edge, we can get rid of a lot of this curriculum. I mean, okay, let's see, how long is that going to take? So in your local school board in my area, it's total like insider bullshit. Like all the insider goody two-shoes liberals are the ones sitting on the school boards because they know somebody who knows somebody. They have time to sit home and run, put their little campaigns and put their signs in everybody's yard. A really true parent and conservative who cares about his children doesn't really have a lot of time for a school board. Maybe somebody like me where my children are grown, yeah, okay, I could get on a school board, but I guarantee you when they check my social media, I'll be out in a week, if that long. And then I'll have to move. Probably would have to move because there'll be rainbow colored bricks flying through my window. That's the level we're at. So the idea of my conservative brothers and sisters thinking that school boards, invading school boards, getting elected to school boards is some kind of solution to this system is just ridiculous. It actually, what it does is it legitimizes a system that shouldn't exist at all. A school board is what? What is a school board? It used to be a school board before the idea of a federal education department. And I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, but Republicans used to fight. Ronald Reagan fought against federal Department of Education. But of course, like all good Republicans, he folded along the rest of them. That's what they do. They fold. Anyway, the school boards, what used to be the village. Like, we hired Miss Sally, the old maid Miss Sally, to come and teach our one-room schoolroom. And Miss Sally was taking up in an adulterous affair with the mayor's husband, or with the mayor, excuse me. Miss Sally was having an adulterous affair with the mayor. Well, guess what? The school board was there to run Miss Sally out of town, throw tomatoes at her and call her a slut or a whore or a hussy. Well, yeah, those days, that was when the system worked, when it was locally run. Like, your school was your local school, and nobody would be able to come in and like infiltrate it with their crap. Well, that system's long gone. I mean, I have to burst your little bubble. There is no political solution for the public school system. None. At best right now, if there's any of you, a lot of you are too young right now or don't even have families or children, but are looking to have children, you absolutely have to homeschool your children. Or if you have enough funds, if you've done well as a young person and you actually can afford a private school, with very strict rules along keeping with your virtues and keeping your parental rights as the apex of everything that school will do. Because that's what it comes down to, is parental rights. A little more on that later. I would recommend that you simply get your kids, do not put them in the system. I am telling you, it is better. All you do is teach your kids to read. I don't do trigonometry. I can't. I can barely do basic math. Why is that? Oh, I went to public school. Okay. So how can I teach my children? I can't do basic math. I sort of know some history. It doesn't matter. Just teach them to read. Just teach them to read. Did you know, we built the entire Western civilization on, peasants and stuff who didn't even know what a book looked like. Knowledge and education. Edukere, to bring forth from within. That's what the word means. Edukere, bring forth from within. God has planted all the knowledge that you need to survive as long as you're a decent human being. He's already put it there. Now, your job as a parent is to simply draw it out. Like a seed, like when you do a garden. Draw out the tomatoes, draw out the apples. You don't go there and try to stick apples on an apple tree. The apples are there. You just have to cultivate the tree. Well, that's not how the public system works. Public system looks at the apples that are growing or the blossoms that are growing on your beautiful little children and goes, we'll be taking those. We'll be taking those off. Plip, plip. And then they take their own disgusting, degenerate little blossoms and graft them on there onto your beautiful little saplings, to stretch the metaphor. So you have no business as a Christian parent or even a decent parent, any parent who just loves their children. Now, I'm assuming Christian, but just a decent parent. You have to know in your heart of hearts, it's your job to raise and educate your children. Your job, nobody else's job. Now, if a school system or a private school is like a tool for you, and that system respects its hierarchy under you as parental rights, and this is where I'll start talking about this. If the parental rights of the school system that you decide to use instead of homeschooling, you have to be able to use it as a tool. at your leisure. If you need a hammer, you're going to take the hammer out of that system and hammer your nail. If you need a screwdriver, it's a tool. It's not the end. It's not you. Here's my baby. Bring him back to me educated. That's dereliction of duty, parents. That's dereliction of duty. So yes, there is other systems besides homeschooling, but I'm not quite frankly aware of them. But even so, I think if you want to rebuild the society of decency and non-degeneracy, you have to go back to the father goes out and works and the mother raises the children. Heresy, right? Heresy for some. No, it works. It works. And the women who do this with their children, stay home, will tell you day and night and day it was the best thing they ever did. Unless they were degenerate wives to begin with, but that's rare. That's rare in the situation I'm discussing. Because if you already have an inkling that you want to homeschool your child, if you already have that inkling in you, that natural desire that this precious thing that just came into my life, I'm responsible for. If you already have that instinct, you'll know what I'm talking about. You don't need, you're not going to be that woman who says, I would rather work. I wish I was at a job. Here's daycare for my kids. Now, I get a lot of flack. Oh, well, some parents are so poor. And what about single mothers? I'm sorry, I'm not talking about single mothers. If you're a single mother, you're already half warped. You've already screwed up your life. Yeah, single mothers can't homeschool their children, by the way. And the ones who repented the most of their mistakes and decided to homeschool their children, like the Surgeon General under Trump, I forget the black guy's name. His mother was your typical inner city ghetto black woman who ended up raising her child by herself. But she homeschooled her child, and he's a brain surgeon. He's a brain surgeon. She forced him to read. She said, and this is my advice really quick again, I'll go back to it. Just teach them to read really good, and it's not that hard. Just read to them. Say this word, this letter, la, 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 ah, ba, ba. Kids are great at learning to read. They love to learn to read. All my kids were avid readers before they were in third grade. I could hand them a book, and they could read it back to me at their level, obviously, and above their level after a certain point. So would it not be better to have a child that doesn't know math, doesn't know history, but can read anything you give them to read, and isn't being confused and turned into a degenerate or groomed or touched by a public school teacher? These are your choices. So I'm going a little long as usual for my so-called short takes. I cannot encourage you enough to homeschool your children. I cannot encourage you enough to Google HSLDA. They will give you the tools to empower yourself and your parental rights. Yes, they're neoconservatives. Yes, as a Catholic, they're a Protestant group generally. But they for $100, it was $100 a year in my time. It might have gone up a little bit. But you got instant access to any lawyer who knew parental rights law in every state of the union. So you have no one but yourself to blame that you've decided to pick monetary comfort over the souls of your children. What I read earlier about that deviant sex offender who also landed himself or itself, I don't know what it is, landed itself a teacher's job with easy access to as a pedophile with easy access to little children. That is where we are now. And if you put your children in that system, there's no school board that's going to fix this. This is your fault. You damaged and neglected your children. You handed them over to the beast, and he destroyed them. And he laughed doing it.